Welcome to Slayer the Alchemist, and welcome to a special episode and a special guest joining me for this special episode. Joining me tonight is Mike, and Mike's been here at the Lair before. Actually, he hasn't. He's been on the Lair, but the last time we were together, we were at his Lair, and we did a video on the movie Halloween, and we talked about the music in it. We talked about the movie. And so, continuing in that vein here, we have this episode today where we're going to be talking about the Italian progressive rock band Goblin. And we're going to be talking about their music and specifically the music that they did for the soundtrack to the movie Suspiria, which is directed by Dario Argento. Goblin has been around since 1972, and they kind of became famous for working with Dario and some of his movies. And both Mike and I are big fans of the movie Suspiria. And so we're going to combine these two things here. Mike has a collection of some Goblin albums. So we're going to be talking Goblin, their music. We're going to be talking about the Suspiria movie. Goblin has released dozens of albums and soundtracks, and they sort of exist today going by the name of Claudio Simonente's Goblin. He was the keyboard player in the original band. And Mike and I are actually going to be seeing Goblin really soon live here. They're coming to Tampa. And so at the end of our video here, I'm going to splice in some live clips of the band. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining me here at the Lair.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well,
Excited.
let's and hey, I gotta let's throw some praise here to Mike for that awesome backdrop that he's got going on there. It fits the mood perfectly for what we're going to be talking about. Yeah, it's kind of trippy, it's kind of scary, and that's kind of what Goblin's music is. It's kind of trippy, it's scary, it's weird. Suspiria is a trippy, scary kind of horror movie. So, tell us about when did you first discover Goblin? What were your thoughts when you first heard them? What do you think about them? And maybe if you want to show us some of the records that you've collected from them.
Yeah, it's funny because I I vaguely remember seeing Suspiria when I was younger, and after all these years and time has passed, I felt like I came back and revisited the film and some of the other Dario Argento films and just Giallo films in general. But for some reason, Suspiria is just my favorite one of them all. Um, and also, I just have a fascination with witches. So, out of all the like Halloween spooky characters, I just gravitate towards the witchery. Why, I don't know. But that that main opening song for Suspiria, or the one that's famous, it's just so unique and it just draws you in. And just when I revisited the film years and years later, just the colors, if you watch a really good copy of it with all the colors and how bright they are, it just it's so magical. I don't know what it is, but I just love it. But yeah, I've
Yeah,
been
for
trying to.
sure. For sure. I was going to say you mentioned that main theme, and I meant to mention in the beginning here about what an influential movie this was. In our first episode that we did together was on Halloween, and John Carpenter has cited Suspiria and the soundtrack as being very influential on him. Not only the movie, but the music and how the music worked within the movie. And if you've never seen Suspiria and you see it for the first time, you'll hear that main theme that you talked about, that da 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 da, and it's very Halloween-like, it's
Oh
sort
yeah,
of like the
for
Michael
sure.
Myers theme. It doesn't sound like it, but it's the same sort of concept. There's this, I don't know what is this, some sort of synthesizer that is played on, and it's just a simple kind of little one note melody theme that returns throughout the movie. And you can definitely hear how John Carpenter took the influence from that then. So when Halloween came around, you had that classic sort of Michael Myers theme that pops up through the movie. So,
For sure.
all right, you got some records from them.
Well, I'll start off with the one I got in the mail recently. Um, this is from a different movie, Profondo Rossi. It's just a 7-inch deep red, basically. I don't know if it's showing up there, but Cool little 7 inch. It's on green vinyl. I don't know if you can see the back of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
cool.
but that little creepy doll. I don't know if you ever seen Deep Red.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
the weird little doll. But this came out on Mutant Records just recently. Um, and it's got like a B-side that has the doll like laughing in some kind of like new intro that's never been released or something like this. So I had to pick that up because that is a good one. But as you know, going with the guys to the record store day adventures, I try
Mhm.
to grab things when I can. So this was a record store day release for Goblin, Dawn of the Dead. I don't know if it can show up. So
Yep.
weird doing this on the computer,
I can see it. It's
but
coming out good. Yeah.
I don't know. This one's on brain colored pink vinyl.
I love it.
So that one's a good, that's a record store day from 2021. And then we've got the old classic 7 inch. Boom.
Nice.
And I love, their logo with that
Yeah.
devil playing the violin is so cool. Um, this one was purple vinyl from 2016, but just a little 7 inch. I don't think I have a big 12 inch copy of this one with the classic artwork that everybody knows. Um, and then this one is from the tour, 12 inch. Music for a Witch tour edition that can be seen there.
Nice.
It's got a crazy looking ah, some crazy witchery. But that was a super fun show where they played the film in the background while they performed. Me and my
Wow.
wife went to that, and it was really cool and interesting to watch an entire movie and have them intervene with the songs as you hear them in the film. It
Were they
was
like off stage or could you see them or?
They were on stage and the film was right in the background, just playing. It was at the old Orpheum in Ybor City in Tampa. And it was just really cool. Like I've never seen anybody do that before. And I think I mentioned to you, afterwards we ended up at this bar down the road that's no longer there. And they were inside the venue just grabbing beers, like trying to play pool and stuff. But I can't remember the girl's name off the top of my head that plays in the band with him, but she was the one kind of interpreting English and like helping us just say hi and
Yeah.
oh, I love your work, you're so awesome. Can't believe you're here right now. But it was really nice. I've seen them one other time at State Theater in St. Petersburg, where they just did a mixture of all the different films that they've done over the years and just had the different clips, movie clips playing on the big screen in the background.
Wow.
It's really cool. I imagine when we go see them coming up, they'll probably do something similar.
Yeah, because it should be mentioned that they are a band.
Mhm.
And so even though this is soundtrack music, it's kind of like a band playing behind it. Like in fact, as much as I love Suspiria, if you've never heard them before, and I haven't heard all their music, but I know what's the Italian name for the Dawn of the Day? Is it Zombie,
Right,
Zombi?
right.
That one's a little bit more, that soundtrack is a little bit more like,
A prog
drums and
rock.
yeah, it sounds like prog rock, scary sounding prog rock. If you
Yeah.
played it for somebody, that's probably they think that's what it was. So that might be sort of an easy gateway for somebody, but the music in Suspiria it goes from either like that simple little keyboard melody that keeps returning. And another really great thing for everybody out there that hasn't heard this band or hasn't heard that soundtrack, throughout the movie, when that theme is playing, there's this, I don't know if he's actually saying anything or if he's just making like screaming type noises like this, yeah, in the background
Oh yeah,
sound.
it's got the
It's yeah, it sounds like black metal. Like there's these background vocals that are like, yeah, going every now and then through some of the things. There's these things with like tribal, like it sounds like a timpani or something, like whoa, 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 whoa,
oh,
and like these weird instrument sounds. It's not like if you're thinking of a soundtrack like in a typical movie where it's just sort of incidental background stuff. It's really not like that. The music is really loud in Suspiria. It's very dominant in the movie. It plays a really, really big part in the movie. And there's all these sort of interesting sounds and uh, just different things going on. And as you go through, like I think they even have one that's like a Western, don't they? They did like a soundtrack for, so they've done stuff for all kinds of different things. But definitely the
yeah.
Suspiria and the zombie, Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead one. Those are great, great places to start. And if you've never seen the movie, put some headphones on, watch the movie and the music. I mean, you can't ignore the music. That's how I heard them for the first time. I went and this was in the early days of Netflix. I don't know if you remember with Netflix, you used to be able to subscribe and they would actually send the DVD to you. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
this, but it's very
Yeah.
early on. That's what they used to do. And I had gotten this book, like the 100 horror movies you must see. And
Mm.
Suspiria was on there. And so I rented it from Netflix. And I remember just being immediately like, whoa, this like besides loving the movie, the soundtrack really jumped out at me. And I was like, man, what is this? And this was kind of like the early days of the internet. So I couldn't find any information that way. And I remember not too long after that, somebody told me, like, oh man, you should check out the group Goblin. And I was like, oh, I never heard of them. What are they about? And they go, well, they do soundtracks and they did Suspiria. And I was like, oh, okay. Then I got it. I was like, oh, all right, this is an actual band. And I have other friends that are very much into the group, like this, not just the movies, but into the music and everything that they put out. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
you got a couple
Yeah.
other things there?
Sure. I mean, you've got this one was Death Waltz Mondo, but it's like a repress. There's one that came out before this on like a different splatter vinyl. There's not much going on the back except for the shadow of like the witch lady or whatever at the end. Um, it's like blue and white splatter or something like this. And I just had to grab it because I just love this movie so much. And then this is a single, like a 12-inch. It's on, they pressed two different variants of this, one on red, one on blue. I just have the red,
That is such
but
a cool cover.
I know, I love it. And then it just has the title track for Suspiria and Dawn of the Dead is the B-side. I
Wow.
wish I had grabbed the blue, but I can't catch them all. Um, and I was just gonna throw these two in here just because we're talking about this style of music, but I picked this up at one of the record store days, and this is kind of like a little bit different, but still very yellow, an Italian themed like horror soundtracks from different films. Um, Kind of interesting, like when me and my wife go on long distance drives out of town, I'll put these things on and we just listen to them, and it's a little different, maybe not so prog rocky. It's definitely an interesting voyage into Italian horror movie soundtrack. Um, Maybe not as frightful as this looks with the razor blade and the eyeball. It's a lot more 70s, like, I don't know, funk, soul, like
Yeah,
jazzy
groovy.
and
Yeah.
stuff like this. And the only other one I had was this Lucio Fulci's horror, another horror master. Um, Mastered by James Plotkin. It's kind of cool. It's got a cool cover with the,
Wow.
but kind of same style as the other one, just some weird, some weird
Wow.
Italian, just horror. This is featuring a lizard in a woman's skin, the New York Ripper, the Beyond, Demonia, House by the Cemetery, and the Door to Silence, which I don't think I've ever heard of. So some more rare Italian horror. Fun stuff.
Nice. Very cool. How would you describe, what are your thoughts on the movie in general? What is it that you like most about Suspiria?
I love the color more than anything.
Yeah,
Just the way
it,
they filmed it with the colors. It's just no one's ever at the time, no one had ever done anything like that. It was so forward thinking for Argento to use that lighting scheme. And you think about it now, how many people copy it? It's insane.
yeah, it should be like for those who haven't seen it. It's I won't give away too much of the plot, but a girl, Susie, I believe is her name, goes to this dance school in Germany, and there's witches involved with the school, and all kinds of supernatural stuff starts happening. But through the movie, there's this use of color, like red, blue, like when you held up that
Right.
cover with her in the red, her face all
Right.
red, that's very much like, a nod to the movie because
Oh
there's
yeah.
these strong colors. Like I rewatched the movie today and there's a scene where she's dumping some wine in a sink, and it's like this bright red, thing. And you can tell they must have had lights, off camera, that they must have had gels on. So even in simple scenes where people are just talking, there'll be like this blue hue to the screen, or there'll be this red. And the building, the dance school, is like bright, a red
Right.
color, and it's just these very kind of bright, not necessarily bright colors, but just strong colors, like a strong red, a strong blue, a strong green. And it creates this sort of, yeah, just like vibe to the whole movie. That's really, that jumps out at me too. Like when you watch it for the first time, that use of the way they use colors is very creative.
For sure. I also love the main character, Jessica Harper. Um, and I love how she was in the remake at the end. I don't know, did you watch the
No,
remake?
I've never seen the remake. I was going to ask you about that, if you
Well,
saw it and if
all
you
right.
liked it. And
It's not a remake, it's a reinterpretation
okay,
of the movie, but it features Tilda Swinton. Dakota Johnson is like the main chick of the whole movie. Um, Different people. Mia Goth from Maxine's in it,
okay.
which is great. But I like how she did her cameo at the very end of the reinterpretation. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is crazy. It was definitely worth seeing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear because sometimes when you've got a classic movie and it gets, sort of like a modern reinterpretation or something, sometimes that can go awry because, we mentioned this movie's from 1977. So I was finishing watching it when my wife got home from work, and she was like, "Oh, it looks so," she just walked in towards the end of it. She's like, "Oh, it looks so like cheesy, because it's so simple." But I like that. I know you like that
I
kind
love
of
it.
thing too. That kind of 70s, like very, you don't really see, there's a slasher in the parts of the movie, but you never really see him. You see his
Right.
arm and stuff like that. It's a lot more of like noises and things in the distance, and they're running from people, and people trying to open up locks through doors and stuff like that. And so and again, it's sort of what I love about these 70s horror movies is that they're much simpler times. So there's no cell phones, there's no cameras, so it
Right.
has this real isolating feeling, like they're in this very big dance school. There's all these girls at the dance school. They all stay there, they dorm there, but yet it still has this sort of like claustrophobic feel to it. There's hidden chambers and hidden doors and things like that. So that's I've always enjoyed like that idea of like big scary looking buildings with secret doors and underground tunnels and and
Right.
things like that. So it has that kind of vibe to it. You're hearing sounds and that they hear sounds and where did that sound come from? That type of thing. So it's very simple. There's
Oh
no
yeah.
there are some kind of gory parts there when people are
Oh
getting
yeah.
stabbed and stuff like that. And there's some close-ups and
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
and it looks a little silly, but it's still pretty gory considering its time.
Practical effects versus CGI and everything, and they really hit home with it, I think. You know. But yeah, the remakes from 2018, definitely give it a spin. It's cool.
Yeah.
I saw it in the theater and I was like, wow. Some people maybe didn't like it more than others, but I thought it was great.
Yeah, and you mentioned the main actress. She does a great job of like, she's her acting is great. There's just sort of the small characters around her, the dance instructor, the head of the school, and everything. They give off this sort of unsettling vibe. Like you kind of think like, oh, there's something funny going on here at this place, and it takes a little
Yeah.
while for Susie to figure out exactly, some girls go missing and things like that. And eventually, we won't totally give it away, but eventually, everything gets, everything comes to a head and it comes to an end. But yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts on the movie or the soundtrack or the band?
I don't know. I just love this style of music. I love collecting horror movie soundtracks, and it's definitely in my like top three. I think my favorite of all time is will always be Rosemary's Baby. I don't know why that soundtrack is like top tier, but Suspiria is right up there for sure.
And
Yeah.
it's very influential too. I mentioned that
Oh
earlier
yeah.
about John Carpenter, but this was like when people tended to do soundtracks back then, they tended to be like orchestral type of string instruments and things like that. Uh, whereas this was like a band, and even though they use all kinds of weird kind of sounds and synthesizers and stuff like that, it sort of foreshadows like the 80s, the way a lot of the sort of horror soundtracks would go in the 80s. And in a lot of ways, too, you mentioned like how you like these sort of horror soundtracks. And I know you have you showed a couple others in your collection, and I know you have a lot more of this type of stuff, and we'll have to do an episode maybe talking about some of these other albums that you have. But this is sort of like the birth of that sort of keyboard,
Oh yeah.
synthy, atmospheric type of thing. Maybe there's drums in it, or simple kind of things like that. And it does sort of foreshadow like the synthy stuff, horror stuff that would come in the 80s. So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
When you think about the the breathing in the main track for Suspiria, and then you think about Rosemary's Baby, where it's like la 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 la. It's just like breathy, like there's no real vocal, like lyrics being sung.
Yeah.
Um, they kind of go hand in hand, which that's why I'm drawn to them, I think. But have you ever heard Celtic Frost, like Morbid Tales?
Oh yeah,
That
of course, yeah.
there's that one track on there where it's like, it's like the bells, and it's just like it's very reminiscent of that style, and I feel like it's like an homage to that, their love for that kind of soundtrack vibe and Goblin and all the scary, spooky things.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so yeah, so if you've never heard Goblin, we recommend that you go. They're on the streaming services, so you can look them up on the streaming services or look them up on YouTube and listen to the Suspiria and the zombie soundtrack. Those are good places to start. And then make sure you watch the movie. Actually, we just say watch the movie first and then go and listen to the soundtrack or whatever order you want to take it in, but it'll send you down a rabbit hole here with Goblin. It's they're a really cool band for people out there that like the progressive type of stuff, 70s progressive stuff. There's definitely stuff here that you'll like if you're somebody that likes these analog, natural, keyboardy type sounds, scary type stuff, atmospheric stuff. There's plenty of that there also. So. Okay, all right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining me here again at the Lair
Oh
to
yes.
discuss Suspiria. This was really a lot of fun. You got any final thoughts or anything you want to leave us with before we
Just
sign
was
off?
gonna I was just gonna plug the show. It says Claudio Simonetti's Goblin Anthology Show will take place at the Orpheum in Tampa, Florida on Wednesday, November the 27th. Doors are at 7. We'll
Yeah.
see you there.
So
We'll
make
see
sure,
you.
yeah, look at see if they're coming through your town. So if you've never heard them and you check them out and you like them, that would be a great, great way to experience. I'm really looking forward to it. I've never seen them. I'm super excited about it. As I mentioned earlier in the video, we're filming this a few weeks before the show. I'm going to try to splice in some clips from them live, and I'll set the show so you get to see us at the show and some clips of them. So. All right. Well, Mike, thank you for joining me again here at the Lair. I'm sure we're going to be doing this again with some more movies. Let us know in the comments down below if you've heard Goblin, if you've seen Suspiria, maybe you've seen Goblin live. Let us know if there's any other movies you would like us to cover, movies with cool soundtracks. Let us know in the comments down below, and we'll see you at the next one.